Welcome to our weekly mock CMMC Level 1 assessment, where our players are going to bring the requirements to life through role play. Quick disclaimer, this is just for informational training purposes only. If you take something that you learned during this mock assessment and implement it incorrectly, don't sue Aspire Cyber, please.
Or any of the players.
Or any of the players. We take no accountability. We're just trying to demonstrate in a fictitious players. And then also, if you're not talking, I actually go on mute. All right, so a little bit about Aspire Cyber. My wife and I started Aspire Cyber back in 2021. And we now specialize in CMMC readiness. So we are helping small defense contractors, small to medium-sized defense contractors prepare for their CMMC Level 2 certification assessment. And since the rule went into effect last month, we've seen a lot more activity now. I think defense contractors realize CMMC is not going away, making an investment. So we've been pretty busy, but that's the good kind of busy, helping them get ready. Some assessment tools we're going to be using today. CMMC Proof, that is our assessment tool that Aspire Cyber developed. So that's what we'll be using to keep track of the requirements for Level 1. Also, you as the audience, we expect it to be interactive. You know, we get to sit back and relax too much. We'll be asking poll questions after each domain to get your feedback on whether you feel that the players, specifically the organization seeking assessment players, responses satisfy the requirements per your opinion. And then also, as throughout the presentation or the mock assessment, post your questions, any feedback. Just high-level overview of the CMMC Level 1 self-assessment. It is for federal contract information. That's what's in scope. So any systems that process, store, transmit federal contract information is in scope for defense contractors' annual self-assessment for Level 1. All other assets are out of scope. There are 15 requirements for Level 1. All 15 requirements have to be met. There are no POAMs for a Level 1. And the good thing about it is, with the CMMC program rule, specifies that annual self-assessment for Level 1 that must be reported in SPURS has to be reported by a senior official from the organization. So we can know senior leadership can't just put it off on IT and say, submit our attestation. It has to be someone from senior leadership. So they're the ones who are accountable. That self-assessment is false as far as the results. Enter into SPURS, and all assessment objectives must be met for Level 1 and Level 2 as well. But you'll see in the tool where you have the requirement, and then you'll have the assessment objectives. So as our players that are assuming a role of assessors, they're going to be evaluating ultimately at the assessment objective level. However, we don't have, due to limited time, the assessors won't be able to really grill the OSA too much. They're just going to be real high level. So just understand it just for our sake of time. And I added this slide yesterday, just an update where now it's live in SPURS, where defense contractors can report their CMMC Level 1 self-assessment results. So it's real. It's not a requirement yet. Once the 48 CFR rule is finalized, and then the DoD is going to do a four-year phase rollout, then that's when probably the first year going to be requiring Level 1. But you can go in there today if you're a contractor and submit your score. And you see here it's asking about that affirming official, that senior level representative, and their contact information. Not Bob or Sally from IT, that senior level official who actually controls budget and investment in CMMC compliance. So I think that's wonderful. Okay, now the reason you're here, our star main attraction, the players. So we're going to go in order. I'll just ask them to do a quick brief introduction before they officially assume their role and go into character. So Alan, can you start us off?
Sure. My name is Alan Wesley. I work at L3Harris Technologies. My disclaimer, everything I say here is my own opinion and does not have anything to do with my current employer. I've been here for 8 years. I started out as an ISSM and I've worked my way up through the ranks. It was the corporatism for a minute, and it's about 2 years. Went back into the segment as the director of cybersecurity and cyber intelligence teams. We managed the security posture of multiple customers across multiple customer bases: SAP, IT, INC, SAP, and DoD collateral, and a host of others. So lots of span of scope here in Florida. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to participate. And I've got about 20 years in experience with information systems and cybersecurity cumulative.
Awesome. Welcome. Charnice, you're up.
Right. I'm Charnice Tatum. I'm compliance officer at MSP in Houston, Texas. This is about my second year being engulfed in compliance, and I love it so far. And I'm so glad that I have this opportunity with everyone here.
And being as someone who loves compliance as well, it warms my heart and spirit. Someone that loves compliance. All right, you're up next, Denver. Hopefully you love compliance too.
By proxy, I guess you could say I love compliance. I respect you folks that completely immerse yourselves at all times in it. I'll go tinker in my IT world every once in a while, but I am director of IT and security for a defense contractor, and I have actually come out of the financial services industry, which is another compliance-friendly industry. I've had the pleasure of being on the Forbes Technology Council in the past, and just love to work on the tech side, and I can handle the compliance side when needed.
We'll take it. All right. Next up, Irvin.
Yeah,
You're off. Yeah, you're off mute now. We see you. You're back on mute.
Rod the Fourth here. I am based in the Virginia area. I am a newer business owner. Started it not too long ago, and just super excited about being here today. My business works with particular groups, small and mid-sized businesses, and startups, and some of those other different entities, providing cybersecurity consultancy. So glad to be here, hoping to take a lot from this, and thank you for your time.
Awesome. Last but not least, Elvis.
Hey, thank Derek. So Elvis Moreland, yeah, I'm a prior service military person. So I was a command information security officer for a number of years, and then went on to become a fully qualified certification agent for Department of the Navy. After that, I've worked in financial services and DoD contractor environments like Lockheed Martin, Harris Corporation, before it was L3 Harris. I was a deputy chief security officer there. So yeah, way over in Melbourne, Florida. But yeah, I bring a couple of decades of experience in cyber from the DoD perspective, as well as some commercial.
All right. So let me have some rock stars joining us today as players. Exciting. Just a high level overview as far as the assessment plan. Typically how it would work if a organization seeking assessment was bringing in external assessors. The lead assessor would do a kickoff meeting with all of the relevant stakeholders from that OSA. They would introduce their team, let them know how everything is going to flow during the assessment. So for level 1, there are 6 domains, and this shows you how many requirements per domain. And then at the end, we're going to do an out brief of the assessor, sharing if they have any findings, sharing their feedback, and then also give the OSA opportunity for clarification if necessary. But for the purposes of this mock assessment, we're going to aim to leave the last 10 minutes to open it up for questions, feedback from the audience. All right. So with that being said, let's get ready to jump into the assessment. This is the tool we're going to be using.
Derek, can you introduce this tool to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Good idea. So essentially, this is our assessment tool that Aspire Cyber developed called CMMC Proof. One of the key differences from other GRC tools that we've seen on the market is we incorporate kind of the project management into the tool and providing guidance, breaking it up into bite-sized pieces as far as assessment phases. So for each phase, we have recommended activities that the user should be following with each phase, and that kind of lets you progress through the assessment in a methodical way, versus what I see a lot of times when clients bring us in, if they've already done, let's say, a gap assessment. They're starting here, but they missed this part where they didn't do none of those activities as far as data flow diagram, network diagram, scoping, identify how they can reduce the scope. So if they haven't done that yet, and even identifying where is their FCI or their CUI. So that's why we really wanted to incorporate this into the tool, but it's real high level. Definitely always happy to get someone to tour if you want to know more about it. For today, we're just going to be doing, actually, let's go ahead and set up this company. So remind me, it's Cyber Explorer, right?
Cyber Explorer Research.
Okay, let's see. So Cyber Explorer Research. All right, see, level 1 self-assessment. Okay, so we're going here and we'll start the assessment. So I'll hand it over to which one of the assessors are going to be kicking this off for access control domain.
So the roles that we've established is GRC is Charnice. I've assumed a role as CISO. So that leaves you, Denver, as the CEO. So you want to kick us off and tell us a little bit about the organization? Did you get the from Sharnice?
We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Thought I hit it. Sorry, guys. With the access controls underneath, only authorized users are allowed to access FCI via individual accounts, strong passwords, role-based through Microsoft AD, ensures access to the necessary systems. We are restricting physical access to areas like server rooms using keycard entry at those points of ingress egress. Remote access requires a personal near and dear Fortinet VPN access to get to that, enforced by MFA, and is monitored by our MSSP. And then our public facing systems, such as like the company website, are previewed and approved for public dissemination of data. So there's a policy in place to deal with FCI. So that's kind of an overview of the controls.
I wanted to kind of just back up just a little bit and give a
Sure.
brief profile of the company that we're assessing. Well, Cyber Explorer researcher, we're a small company, a small business with 21 employees, 5 personal touch FC, 5 of the personal touch FCI actually. We're based out of Jackson. And, our primary customer is the Department of Homeland Security and CMMC compliance. What is our reason? So we're required to handle FCI information for upcoming contracts.
Thanks for doing that, Alan. I skipped this slide.
And what's up next?
All right.
IT infrastructure.
So was that?
That's going to be you, Sharnice. I think since you put it together.
So as far as the IT infrastructure, off-premises file server will be in the data center for research project documentation. For example, risk management plan, statements of work, progress reports, and also additional framework assessment materials from previously successful assessments such as ISO 9001. We also have off-premises SIEM solution that's provided by our MSSP, that's external, cloud Microsoft products, and we also have an internal IT department for IT support.
Our security focus is effective and integrated cybersecurity solutions to meet the CMMC Level 1 requirements. Our network topology, just briefly, is like FCI PCs locked in. They're locked in the closet and marked appropriately with 5 we have 5 personnel that have access. We have remote access into the server that contains the FCI, but no FCI resides on a physical workstation. We've got firewalls, 21 workstations. Our data center consists of a file server, domain controller, and firewall. And that's it for the profile.
Okay. If I could follow up with some questions here. So you've scoped your CUI as just FCI, and the way you're handling that, or how you've identified who touches the FCI, you've identified 5 individuals. Do these, each 5 individuals, do they have a FCI laptop that they can check out whenever they need to? Is that how it's managed?
No. So the FCI is a workstation that's behind a locked door. And with that being said, and even for the MSSP for maintenance on the server that's in the data center, everyone will have to remote in order to touch the FCI.
Okay. All right. And can you show us a data flow diagram of the FCI information, where it resides, how it's logically managed on the network?
Well, at this time, we don't have the data flow diagram.
And that's not a requirement for this mock assessment, but you can just kind of just talk to it as far as how the
Yes.
data flow.
Yeah, we have one, and it can be provided upon official request.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Excellent, excellent. Sorry, I caught you off guard there a little bit.
That's okay.
That's
Not
the
needed.
assessor in me.
That's how it happens. That's exactly how it happens.
Yes.
Exactly. So, Irvin, did you want to ask any questions about the intro so far?
No, I think we're pretty good on intros. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, I had to switch devices. My last device has some lag with this. But no particular questions right for.
It's a little hard to hear you. You sound really far away.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
We can hear you better. But yeah, I was just saying that this is perfect. No further questions right now. Ready to dive in. Like I said, the background that you provided just gives us who you are, how we can kind of meet your needs when it comes to being CMMC. So I'm ready to kick things off if that's okay. Check. Perfect. So we'll first start off with the access portion. So what I want to understand is, can you possibly walk me through, what type of controls are in place right now for your access control? What I'm trying to better understand is how you limit access for your
Right. So I can start off with access control. So for 3.1.1, only authorized users access FCI via individual accounts with strong passwords. There's role-based access via the Microsoft Active Directory that ensures necessary staff and personnel only access necessary systems. System access to the FCI is limited to those authorized individuals. And for 3.1.2, Cyber Explorer restricts physical access to a server room using keycard entry at the data center. And point 20 is remote access to company systems require Fortinet VPN with multi-factor authentication. The use of external systems is controlled, monitored, and limited by the MSSP. And also point 22 is public-facing systems such as the company website and online press releases exclusively disclose information intended for public dissemination. All documentation or systems containing FCI are marked appropriately for FCI and properly posted. There is a policy and procedure in place to remove it.
now, it seems like you did your homework because we're very proactive going through the rest of the questions for one of the other things I did want to ask, I know you talked about is that something that we can request offline? In addition, maybe also talk about indicate that for 3.120 control taking place.
Yes, we could do artifacts that will demonstrate that for you.
Sure. Checking my notes. Think good so far. To transition over to the identification, authorization, authentication piece.
And before we dive into that, I'm gonna do an audience poll just to see their feedback on the responses. They feel that they've met the requirements for access control. So you should have it on your screen for the poll. Do you feel they satisfy the access control requirements for level 1? That's controlling external connections, transaction and function control, and also authorized access.
We don't get to participate in the poll.
So we have what's winning right now is partially. So and I think we did, obviously we're keeping it real high level for time purposes. But as I mentioned, doing an actual assessment, the assessor would be going through each assessment objective and then just asking for artifacts or make sure they're interviewing those subject matter experts to get adequate and sufficient evidence that the requirement is met. What's important to understand, let's say, for example, if 5 of these 6 assessment objectives are met, but this last one is not, that means this requirement is not met. That it in mind. It's pretty much all or nothing with the exception of a couple for level 2. All right, so yeah, Elvis, you're up next for identification and authentication. And then if you're not, whoever's not speaking, if you can go on mute until.
Okay, I'm going to follow the questionnaire on the screen so that we don't lose anyone in the audience. All right, so for this control, we're going to identify system users and processes that act on behalf of users or devices. Can you give us evidence that your system users are identified?
So we're going into the IA section here. In accordance with IA L1, is that what we're doing here? Our unique username,
Yes.
complex passwords are enforced for all employees and are regularly updated. The FCI system users are identified, and those users are also assigned to workstations pulled from the locked inventory closet at headquarters. There are 2 systems containing that FCI and remotely accessed that are accessible to authorized individuals to an office behind a locked door that is properly labeled. The FCI on a server on the inside the data center. So the FCI exists on systems inside of the data center. So it's properly controlled, and the access is actually controlled.
Okay. So we have unique identifiers for your system users, and those system users do have approved role-based access to FCI. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And then on part B of this objective, how are you identifying processes that work on behalf of users?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Could you rephrase that?
Yeah. And if you want to give some examples of processes, Elvis, maybe relevant.
Okay. So let's say you have a process that will log in and act as a user. Let's say a report. You're going to generate a report, and then that report generator logs in with credentials that are going to act on my behalf and pull up a report on where we are in a project that contains FCI. How would you identify that process that's acting on behalf of me?
So those would be like service accounts, right? That would be accessing the system on behalf of the user, and those would all be categorized, and they would be controlled. People would be put into those groups. Those groups would be managed, and for the service accounts, those service accounts would be protected, and passwords would be managed and rotated on a regular basis.
Okay, so you do have an inventory of those processes that are acting on behalf of
Yes.
users. Okay, all right. So. And in the final objective here, are there any devices that are accessing the system on behalf of a user?
Are you talking about mobile devices?
So let's say the controlled entry point for the data center or the server room. If I'm using my HID card, my access card, to get through that doorway, so I shape, or I swipe my card, and then that device actually will validate that I have access to the room and to that area. That device is acting on my behalf. Do you have
card access systems are part of the corporate infrastructure, and they are controlled and monitored. The network is segmented in a way where folks that have those cards and those card readers are on a separate network, and they're controlled, and the users are controlled. So there is a access protocol to ensure that people that are accessing the areas they're authenticated, and they do have a need to know to be in those areas.
Okay, excellent. So if you could provide us a inventory of the processes and an inventory of those devices as well that will work with the system or on behalf of a user, that would be great.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, let's see what the audience thinks about your responses, Alan. Good questions, Elvis. I really like that you gave the examples of what type of artifacts evidence you would want to see.
Puts me on the grill, presses me down, flips me over.
No mercy.
Hey, one old Harris guy to another, man. Come on.
Yeah, you knew you can handle it. Let's see what the audience thinks so far. I'm looking at grade 100% met. So did good on that one. And what also you'll notice with these requirements for level 1 and level 2, but a lot of them will overlap. So maybe some of the information that came out doing access control, once you get to IA, you realize, okay, that there's overlap there. So some of the information that Alan provided, we can go back and say, okay, yeah, based on that, we know you meet the access control ones and so forth. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's move on to the next one. We'll right along to media protection. Who has that?
Irvin, I'll let you take this one.
Irvin, are you going to do media protection?
Yep. So, scrolling down to media protection. Thank you for that. So, let's talk about media protection, particularly some of the most important pieces is how we handle it. So, one of the questions I wanted to ask is,
Sure. So that originates in the IT department. I don't mind handling this one if my colleagues are okay. So with that, we wipe all of our drives, all of our media internally, and then they're actually sent to a third party to finish the final process of destructions following the NIST 800-88 guidelines specifically. We will receive a data destruction certificate that the data has actually been destroyed, in addition to our own, wiping the drive prior to sending. So anything from USBs to any other kinds of system media will follow the same measures. As some of us have encountered, we often can generate even CDs and DVDs at times. So that's something that, still lurks out there for some.
And, one of the other things, if there's any commitments that does that follow the same process? Like how much different is it? I know you talked about being certified through your third party, but just wanted to better understand that.
Sure. So, I can speak from even previous experience with CUI. You would not send a CUI device, for example, to a non-CUI use. I would destroy and purchase new from an IT department purchasing provision perspective. In addition to that, the device could be wiped and reissued as a continued FCI device, if you will, but that would be tracked and measured in our SOP and would be, around 5 users would be very limited application.
Yeah, I definitely think that we're on a good track when it comes down to handling your media protection in the right instance. One thing I did want to just try to retrieve from you is just some of those copies of those certificates, just to ensure that they are being done. For your media that's no longer in use.
Absolutely. We can provide those certificates as well as our stop, for the entire process.
Cool. So what I like that Irvin did there is he didn't read word for word verbatim the objectives. He just kind of talked through it and still gathered the information he needed to determine if those objectives are met. As assessors, that's a good thing to do. Basically translate these requirements into plain English for the defense contractors. So that was great. And then I love that Denver, he mentioned the Pacific publications like this SP 800-88, what they're using as a guideline for media disposal. So that's all good stuff. And definitely assessors are going to be happy to hear that you're using a standard or that you're following it. Let's see what the audience thinks. Launch the poll. I think they satisfied the one media protection requirement. All right. Looking good. The audience is happy. Moving on to physical protection. Let's see how well you are protecting your physical facilities. Who's up for physical protection?
All right.
Irvin, I'm sorry, I didn't see your notes previously. You have your name against this question and these objectives. Do you want to go ahead and take those?
Whatever's most comfortable. I don't mind taking.
Yeah, please go ahead. I want to follow your notes.
No problem. So we're going to move into the next portion of this where we talk about physical protection. As we all know, it's very important to protect assets, but also protect our people, protect our data, protect all of it. When I consider this, you definitely have to have the right controls in place. Just kind of think about particularly with this little factor.
So at the headquarters at our office, the access is controlled by security badges, and only staff with clearance can enter the secure work area, such as the room that contains the workstation that remotes into the FCI at the data center.
So it appears that just from my notes, you do on the authorized.
Yes.
Sure.
And it's also logged into our systems who swiped their security badge at that door.
Okay. Any other mechanisms or controls you have in place when it comes down to physical security?
Yes. So we do have a CCTV monitoring at key entry points and specifically at that door with the FCI workstation. And while at the data center, there is real-time monitoring of authorized individuals that is assessed there, and escorts must be present for visitors that are visiting with our personnel. And this is identified in the visitor policy.
Sure. And then I'm assuming
Yes.
visitors and physical access.
How physical access devices they're identified through a software. So when you swipe the badge, the software picks it up and logs it in real time as to who swiped the badge, what time, and where in the facility. And that also goes for the data center as well.
Appreciate you for
Could you repeat that question?
Yeah. So the initial question was your response.
Yes.
All right, good. And so I want to highlight something that Sharnice did good there, where once the assessor asks a question, Sharnice kind of went and gave them a little more detail and highlighted other areas where their control is being enforced. So that's a good thing. We're essentially kind of anticipating what the assessor is going to ask next versus trying to be real tight-lipped and just really structured. Okay, you can go into more detail, really kind of essentially brag about ultimately how well you're really doing the enforcement of the CMMC requirements. So good job doing that, Sharnice. But yeah, be confident. Hey, we got this covered. Have our facility locked down. All right, so let's launch the poll and see what are your thoughts, audience. Physical security. Do you think Cyber Explorer, they have their facilities secured? They're securing that FCI. We got a vast majority says Matt. I think we maybe have one not Matt. I'm curious in the chat if whoever thinks is not Matt, you can get in chat or come off mute to see what else would you have wanted to see or hear from Sharnice in terms of demonstrating full compliance with the physical security requirements. While that happens, get queued up for system and communications protection. Yeah, Elvis.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what anyone in the audience, if they had any feedback on those physical controls, any ideas that they might want to share.
I just realized that was me, and it was by accident. I had clicked the wrong button.
Oh, there you go. Come on, Rodney.
That explains it.
I was testing you guys. That's all.
But no, that's good. Trying to mess up the perfect streak. All right, we're up next with system and communications protection.
Okay, now this is where I normally would definitely ask for a network diagram, to kind of collaborate with what you're going to tell me and what you're going to explain. That's okay, and we don't have it now, but we'll just walk through it, kind of talk through it. Let's talk about your external boundary for your local area network. What does that look like?
So the company's network is segmented, and there's firewalls, and they're configured to block unauthorized traffic. And there's 2 computers that remote into the data center to access the FCI, and it's on a separate VLAN. So we have network segmentation as one of the key tenets of Zero Trust, as everyone knows, making sure that people can only access the things that they need to access when they need to access them, and then and they're authenticated in, and then that permission is taken away.
Okay, so we've met the objective A, and you've talked a little bit about key internal systems. Did you take 2 servers or 2 external systems that access? I'm sorry.
External systems, and then there's an internal server in the data center, and there's 1 FCI workstation.
Okay, so you've got 1 FCI workstation, 1 FCI server. Those are key internal systems that you've identified. So we've met those 2, the objectives for B. Let's talk a little bit about C, and how are you monitoring that communication from external sources?
So publicly available systems are identified through the IT use and the information system security policy that we have. Sensitive email communications are encrypted using TLS and system security plans. They outline the boundaries of the servers containing FCI within the data center.
Okay.
That's high level. I think you were asking a deeper question.
Yes. So are you using IDP or some sort of intrusion detection, intrusion prevention to monitor that communication?
Yeah, so we do use IDS and IDP through our MSSP. And so they provide that for us. And so when we need records or if we need any kind of proof of anything that's anomalous that's happening, they are tightly integrated with us and they will alert us and let us know.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to take a look at, about 90 days worth of reporting. If you run any kind of regular reports on that communication monitoring, that'd be good to take a look at.
We can make that happen. We'll go squeeze our MSSP.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's what you're paying for, right? All right. So let's talk about internal communications. It sounds to me like you've got, zero trust approach. So am I going to assume that you're not allowing cross VLAN communications?
Yeah, the network is segmented, and so it's role-based access control, and so you can't just hop across the different VLANs and get it if you're not authorized to have a need to know or to be into those sections. So the network segmentation protocols do account for authentication before people can get into different VLANs.
Okay. And what mechanisms are you using to monitor that internal communication or manage it?
In our MSSP, they have automation tools that allow them to be able to manage and track the flow of access across our networks, and we can get reports and alerts and generations from them if anything anomalous happens.
Okay, so like ACL rules and alerts and so forth. Okay.
And so we have, I'm sorry, I was stepping on your question.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So the next question is going to focus on separation. Public access separation. So publicly accessible system components. Do you have an inventory of those?
Absolutely. We have an inventory of our equipment, our networks, and different accesses. So what specifically are you asking about?
Yeah, can you give some examples of those, Elvis?
Sure, absolutely. So if you have an external facing gateway, like an SMTP gateway, or it could be a firewall, next gen firewall, something like that that's publicly accessible.
Right. So again, I'll go back to our MSSP. They actually have a good control configuration of our boundary, internal and external. And so if they're using their automated tools to be able to do that assessment of access attempts into our network, we can get those reports from them if there are any anomalous alerts that come up.
And along with that, so in that configuration, there should be a hosted environment or separate environment that's managing a separate network, physical or logical separate network. And we call that typically a DMZ. Do you have an inventory, or it would go a long way with that building that network diagram? Give us an idea of what that DMZ or internal separate network would look like.
Well, so I'm going to go back to the network topology that we talked about earlier that we're going to provide to you. In that topology, it would show you what the network boundaries are, where the DMZ is, and it'll also show you where the entry and exit points are for our MSSP for where they're monitoring. I can't talk you through the very particulars of it, but we can provide that body of evidence.
Okay, so just one clarification. So you have an external MSSP that's accessing your internal network and managing your internal network. Are they doing that via VPN? What's the mechanism that you're allowing that to happen?
I would have to defer to our network folks. I can't walk you through that right now, and it'd be something that you'd have to be able to look at in our network topology.
Okay. All right. We'll follow up with that with definitely some more evidence. I'll just open it up to the group for any questions.
Yep. And Alan, that's definitely something that's recommended, where if you're being interviewed as a stakeholder from the defense contractor, if you don't have the information, don't make it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna connect you with the right subject matter expert, and
exactly.
Assessor would be perfectly happy with that. So well done with role playing that, Alan.
Yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Alan.
It's okay. It's not hot here in Florida, so I'm
and that veteran treatment. But this is probably one of the tougher requirements to fully meet at level 1. So sometimes where defense contractors may think, oh, level 1, this is easy, I don't have to do much. Yeah, this is one that highlights it. It's not really that easy when you're defining those internal, external boundaries.
Well, it's all or nothing, right? So it's not like you get to talk your way out of something if you don't have it. You don't have it, you don't pass.
Right.
Exactly.
All or nothing.
Yeah.
I've had a number of smaller companies, tell me, hey, all we were told to do was set up a firewall. They didn't set up a DMZ. They didn't set up access control. They didn't, And really it caught him off guard because a lot of people assume, okay, we just need to do the bare minimum, and that is not the case.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right. So for time's sake, let's close out with these last two. That's under the system and information integrity. I want to take these last two. Be you, Urban?
One of the biggest things is
Oh, sorry. Yeah, update. Yeah.
So one of the biggest things is, to update your security control. You please
Sure, so I can take that one. We use EDR, XDR, so latest endpoint solution to track and make sure that anything malicious is running is updated. And I can provide some screenshots of that software to give you the proof that it's ongoing in real time. Yes, from the scanning logs as well. We can do that. We do weekly scans essentially, and we can provide that as well.
Sure. And then just to kind of go into my final question, with periodic scans of the information system and real-time scans, are you guys kind of doing that today in-house?
Yeah, so there's a real-time scanning of anything that comes in, following those pesky emails and everything else. And then we have a weekly scheduled full scan to make sure that each device is fully scanned at the level. So basically just to recap, anything downloaded, executed, opened, all that kind of stuff are ensured that we'll protect. And then that is alerted, obviously, if there's a hit on that. And that alerts a ticket internally to us for the IT personnel to then investigate and basically follow an incident response plan of what's going on and do the investigation from there.
And then just as a final instance, do you have a policy in place that encompasses some of your processes?
Yes, we have overarching policies specific to XDR and our tools that we have to maintain by.
Thank you.
All right. That was awesome. So let me share my screen again. And I want to give the applause to the players. I think you all did a good job, and something that I really want to spotlight is how you demonstrated for the audience that these assessments, even though this is mock, it doesn't have to be painful or adversarial type relationship. You really can just approach it as long as the OSA has the right subject matter expert being interviewed for the associated domains. The assessors, they're not trying to, it's not an I got you exercise. They're not trying to be mean or anything like that. It's just like, hey, they have a job to do. You have a job to do. They're just trying to gather information. They want you to pass. But so you just make sure that as a defense contractor, you have the right stakeholders set up for the interviews, and it should go pretty smoothly. So I want to applaud the players. Any for the assessment team, any last feedback you want to give to cyber explorers?
I think word to the wise, you have the right people in the room, you have access to the right SMEs, subject matter experts. But these, even at level 1, it's not a gimme. A lot of people have sold the idea that a level 1 is just a gimme. It's not. You really need to be prepared.
I would add to that. You're absolutely right, Elvis. And as a small business trying to get work with the government, federal government, and trying to come around or get through these assessments, you can't take them lightly. And as you see here, all it takes is the wrong person to be answering the question and get the wrong impression, and you get the answer wrong, and you're on a net. It's all or nothing. And now you've got to go back and figure out, let me get the right person, because maybe they didn't know what they were talking about. And that just adds more turmoil. So it's not a gimme, and it really takes a lot of scoping and planning up front before you go put money into doing an assessment. You're not ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Stacy Botchanik always says, she's a CIO for the CMMC program for DOD. She says these are high stake assessments, and it really are. Potentially millions of dollars on the line. Serious. So I put a link in the chat for a resource that Aspire Cyber created. We call it like a fictitious stake case study for level 1, how a defense contractor satisfies the requirements. And it kind of just walks through essentially what you just saw today, but it's documented in a Excel form. So you can download that directly via that link. Last couple of minutes to open up for the audience. Anybody have any questions, feedback, anything you want to share?
Hey, this is Peter. I just wanted to say right quick that I think it's really cool how y'all guys put this together. and it reminds me a lot of I deal with authorizations to operate with the DoD and with the Navy, so it reminds me a lot of how the interaction between our assessors, our NQVs versus the assessors, and like everybody said up here already, it's not a us versus them. It's like us. Let's come together, make sure that things are secure in the way and fit in control like they're supposed to, and let's move forward. So I appreciate you guys putting this together.
Appreciate your feedback, Peter. And yeah, definitely our players worked hard preparing and getting ready. So that's definitely applaud them for that. And Peter and any other attendees, I'll put the link in the chat to sign up if you want to sign up for a future assessment, mock assessment. Yeah, try to do these every week, every Thursday, same time, same place. You don't have to have CMMC experience. You just spend a couple hours preparing with your team, and yeah, just come have fun with it. But yeah, appreciate it. Any other questions, feedback before we close out? As far as the players, anything y'all want to share in terms of any tips for future players in terms of preparation, insights you want to share?
Have your meeting up front.
Yeah, well, don't discount your data flow diagram and don't discount your network diagram. Those two things are going to be vital when you sit down and talk to your assessors, when you sit down and talk to your DoD customers. Those two things are going to be pivotal. Do not discount what that data flow diagram or what that network diagram will do for you in terms of explaining and justifying.
Yeah, great point. I know when I did risk assessments for Bank of America, we couldn't start those vendor risk assessments until we had a data flow diagram. That was a non-starter because you can't take for granted how powerful just a illustration is. You may have trouble describing something, but if you can map it out and illustrate it, that's going to help connect the dots for that assessor. So, yeah, absolutely.
I do have a question. What would you do that, say that, oh my gosh, I can't say the word customer. Say that a customer or a company, they want to become CMMC level 2 compliant, but they do not have like FCI or CUI. How would you demonstrate a data flow with it? Do you just have a fake CUI computer and you'll map how it would go if you had it? Or what would you recommend as an assessor?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially you're going to identify what services do you anticipate delivering to the DoD, and then what type of data do you anticipate receiving from the DoD, and what's going to be your deliverable. Okay. So that then you just kind of map it out that way. So for example, let's say becoming a CPO on the CMMC third-party assessment organization. They don't have assessment data yet from clients because they're going through the process, but they have to build an environment that's compliant to receive that assessment data from DoD customers. And so that's how they just basically map it out, saying, okay, we know we're going to receive this assessment data. It's going to be in this compliant environment. We're going to use these CUI laptops to access it. So you would do it that way.
Yeah, it's pretty much a design and concept.
Cool. Good question. All right. Again, I definitely invite anyone else to come and participate. It doesn't have to be painful. That's what they were communicating.
As long as you don't have Elvis as your assessor. I'm just gonna put that out.
What are you trying to say, Alan? What are you trying to say?
It's cool.
You're a great assessor.
Very good.
But I appreciate everyone. Thanks for attending, and special thanks to the players. Hope to see you come back again. Play as much as you like. We try to at least have 6 players each week. So thank you all, and I hope to see you next week.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by the complex world of CMMC compliance? You're not alone. Small to mid-sized defense contractors are often swamped by the massive list of requirements, unsure of where to begin, lacking resources, and fearing assessment failure. But there's a solution. CMMC-Proof, your compliance acceleration system. Unlike typical GRC tools, CMMC-Proof breaks down the process into 5 easy-to-follow phases, guiding you through each step of your compliance journey. With everything you need in one place, from CMMC Level 1 and 2 requirements to evidence tracking and more, you'll never feel lost again. Get CMMC compliant faster and easier than ever before. Our system ensures nothing is missed, saving you time and effort. Built by CMMC certified assessors with decades of experience, CMMC Proof delivers real-world expertise and guidance you can trust. By the time your assessment comes, you won't just be ready, you'll be confident. Visit CMMCproof.com to start your 7-day free trial and accelerate your CMMC compliance today.